Chapter 13. Along Came a Wolf by Adam Dreece. Why, come in, my dear. The main room of the house had turned into a staging area, holding the clothes and other items T's family were packing for their trip. Slowly, each item found its way into a large travel trunk or directly onto the horse-drawn cart. How long has it been since we last saw Aunt Gwen? Asked T. Her dad walked in. I think about a year and a half. I'm sure your cousin... He paused, thinking. Elaine? Offered T. No, the other one, the little one, said William. Megan? No, the younger one. The name was on the tip of William's tongue. Norton? Margot? Just then Jennifer walked in, arms loaded with more clothes from the bedrooms. Your sister has a lot of kids, said William. Jennifer laughed. That sister of mine is a baby-making machine. Every time she sneezes, out comes another girl, and if she coughs, a boy. So far, she's had 6 sneezes and 2 coughs. Dad's trying to remember the youngest one's name, said T, hastening the conversation. Jennifer put her finger to her chin. That would be Catherine. Though you're probably thinking of Giselle. Wait, there's a Catherine now? Said William in disbelief. What's your point, Dad? Asked T, flopping backward onto a pile of clothes. I was just going to say she's probably grown a lot, a lot taller and whatnot. But I got lost in all the names, he admitted. Jennifer pulled a picnic basket out from behind the kitchen counter. Well, T, there's something to distract you. Since we're going to be away for a month, I made some of Grandpapa's favorite foods. We'll be leaving at dawn. So would you mind heading over there now with us? T took a hold of the heavy basket. What's in here? Wooden rock soup? That would still taste better than your aunt's meat pie, said William, making his best yuck face. William! Snapped Jennifer while trying to hide her smile of agreement. She believed strongly in respect of family and elders, especially in front of T. Sorry, he replied, chuckling. Hey, Mom, do you think one day we'll have a cart like the one Grandpapa made? Asked T. No, I have no doubt. I bet it'll go faster than a horse within a year, her mother replied. All right, I'll be back before dinner. T donned her yellow cloak, checked her pockets, and headed out the door, basket in hand. Stay out of trouble, said her dad out of habit. Nikolas arrived at the guard administration building, a simple stone structure that housed Captain Alcombolt's office. He opened the front door and walked through the rich, dark wood hallway to the reception desk. The attendant's workday consisted of checking if people had an appointment, asking them to write their name down, verifying he could read it, and replacing the signature book when full. Unsurprisingly, he was asleep at his post. Nikolas knocked hard on the desk, startling the man awake. Oh, Mr. Klaus, can I help you? Said the man, rubbing his eyes and chubby face. He stood up to stretch his back. Yes, said Nikolas. I'm here to see the captain. I have an appointment. The man seemed troubled. Well, I'm sorry to inform you, Mr. Klaus, but no one has seen the captain since this morning. Oh, replied Nikolas, concerned. Gabriel had rarely missed an appointment with him. It was rarer still that Gabriel's staff didn't know his whereabouts. Thank you. I'll check out his home. Maybe once again he is sick, yes? Said Nikolas, turning to go. Actually, Monsieur Klaus, there is no need. We've had a guardsman drop by his home already. He's not there, said the man. I'm sure he'll show up soon. If not, the magistrate will have his head. The magistrate. Wasn't Lulu to be judged today? Asked Nikolas. The man couldn't see the connection. Yes, but according to one of the clerks, he came by earlier. They never brought Lulu over to be judged, but the man settled back into his chair while yawning. That's not my problem. Nikolas knew one thing Gabriel would never do is miss an appointment with a magistrate. Which jail was Lulu in? Asked Nikolas. The man looked annoyed. The north one. Why? Nikolas raced out of the building. He arrived out of breath and immediately noticed that neither the north nor south jail on opposite side of the streets had a guard posted outside. He'd never seen that before. He banged on the door of the north jail and it swung open. He stepped in cautiously. Hello? He yelled. Is there anyone here? He listened carefully. I heard something down the corridor towards the cell. Gabriel, is that you? He called loudly. Came a muffled reply. Gabriel! Yelled Nikolas, rushing toward the cell. He found Gabriel bound and gagged in one of the cells and the guardsman's face down and tied up in the next cell over. Nikolas raced over to free his friend. That wretch! Boomed Gabriel, rubbing his wrists. We've got to go after him! Nikolas hastily went to make sure the other man was alive, and then untied him as well. He then returned to his friend. Why hasn't anyone noticed you here? Gabriel's mood worsened. Do you want the truth? That my people are lazy and deserters? Or that for the past 3 years the magistrate had refused to give anyone a raise or pay for proper equipment? There are so many reasons why they just sit on their behinds unless the proverbial bear comes right up to bite them. Nikolas laughed. Better I not ask? Grumbled Gabriel. He took the hand Nikolas offered and stood up. What time is it? He asked. Late afternoon. Why? Replied Nikolas. Gabriel dusted himself off. Lulu got out this morning. He's planning revenge on everyone involved, especially some Yellow Hood characters. T usually took one of the routes for getting to her grandfather's house. The shortest way was through the forest and took about 20 minutes on foot. The other route went past Ellie's house and was much longer. "Hey guys!" yelled T as she came down the road. Ellie and Richie were racing their new sail carts. T was surprised how fast they were going. Despite it being slightly uphill, they were going at least as fast as she could run, if not faster. "Wow, that looks fun," said T, putting her basket down. Ellie yanked her sail and pulled the brake, quickly coming to a stop. Richie, showing off, picked up even more speed. "What are you doing, Richie?" asked Ellie. "Watch this!" he yelled. Richie pulled down on the sail and telescoping mast, tucked himself into the body of the sail cart, turned the steering wheel hard, and pulled his brake. The sail cart flipped sideways into the air. Ellie and T both watched in horror and amazement. At just the right moment, Richie popped up from inside the sail cart and landed it expertly. As soon as the sail cart's wheels touched the ground, he raised the mast and got it quickly moving again. A couple of seconds later, he came to a decisive stop. Richie's heart was pounding. "Was awesome? How was—" he said, trying to catch his breath. "Breathe," said Ellie as she and T ran up to him. Richie took a deep breath. "Wasn't that awesome? It's my best one yet." He got out one of the sail cart and found his legs were wobbly. "I think I'll sit down for a minute." "That was awesome," said T, grinning. Ellie leaned over at him. "Is that how you got those scratches and bruises on your head and arms?" "You told me you fell out of a tree," she said disapprovingly. T cocked his head, siding with her best friend on this one. "Richie, she's got her arms across and her brow down. You'd better fess up. Come clean," warned T, gesturing for Richie to give up the goods. He sported a winning, toothy smile and asked Ellie, "So was that impressive?" She thought about it for a moment and then nodded. "Yeah, it was," she admitted, cracking a smile. Make sure you make sure you don't hurt that pretty little head of yours, okay? The rocks in there need a place to live." T and Ellie laughed and Richie smiled. "So, T, are you guys leaving tomorrow?" asked Richie, standing up and stretching his legs. "Yes, indeed. We're off to see my aunt, but first I'm going to see Grandpapa's house to drop off some goodies," replied T. "Which aunt? The one with a million kids? The rich one? Or the—" asked Richie. "The one with a million kids," replied T. "I know you have no cousins or anything, but if ever you wanted some, just let me know. I'll give you tons. I'll give you some too, Ellie." "No thanks," said Ellie, waving T off. "I have enough cousins. Not too few, not too many." Richie chuckled. "I still remember when your aunt visited a couple of years ago. You could hear her kids all the way down the mountain." T sighed. "Yeah, there are even more of them now. My mom said she had 8 kids." "8," said Ellie and Richie, stunned. "Wow," Ellie continued. "That's a lot of baby smells and screaming." T knew that. Unlike herself, Ellie wasn't a fan of babies. T loved playing a big sister role. "Anyway, I'll be gone for a month." "A month?" asked Ellie, never liking it when they were apart. T paused and thought. "I think that's what my dad said. About 4 days there, 4 days back, and 2 weeks with my aunt's family. Add in maybe some bad weather or maybe a side trip to the capital city for some chocolates, and that's a month." Ellie almost leapt on T. "Westria? Are you seriously going for chocolates in the holy place of tasty treats?" "My mom said we might. She means if I'm really good and everything goes according to plan," said T. Richie snorted. "Forget it then. Nothing ever goes according to plan." T looked up to judge where the sun was and how much afternoon she had left. "I'd better get going, guys. I've got to drop this basket off at Grandpapa's so I can get back home before dark." "Hey," said Ellie, "why don't we sail along beside you?" "Actually," said Richie, "Ellie, if you'd like her piggyback on the sail of your sail car, I think I can handle the goodies." "Okay," said T, "but no flips, please. I smelled an apple pie in there." Okay, one moment. I gotta get the cat. Okay, that shouldn't have been too much of a distraction. Sorry about that. "Do you know what the best part is?" asked Lulu, crouched down beside the bound and gagged bacon. He'd been unceremoniously dumped on the floor near Nikolas's kitchen doorway, and was now glaring at Lulu. Lulu smiled menacingly, his eyes wild. "Shall I continue, or did you want me to make a point?" "No? Nothing to add?" "Good, I'll continue. Simon St. Malo will get what he wants, boosting my reputation further and making me a very rich man. I'll still need to eliminate any rumor I was beaten and jailed in this nowhere land, but that comes with the territory. Anyway, anyone with sense will believe it was all part of my plot to defeat a member of the tub. The old me wouldn't accept allowing things to get as messy as they are going to get. I'm free from that now, thanks to you and Mademoiselle Archambault and Monsieur Klaus, and that infernal yellow-hooded granddaughter of his. I do so look forward to your deaths." The front door opened and 2 of Lulu horsemen walked in. Lulu stood to look. His men had Angelina Marie tied up and fighting wildly. "Ah, here we go," said Lelou. "One girlfriend, slightly scrambled. Drop her beside him. You, guard, these two. You, I want you on patrol. I've already got your colleague guarding the back." Deciding he had some time on his hands, Lelou went to the kitchen. "Monsieur Klaus," he said to himself, "you have some fine selection of tea. I think I will enjoy some more. I have to say, this cozy kitchen is growing on me." Lelou made his tea and then sat down. He looked around the kitchen. He looked at the walls. Gradually, he looked up at the ceiling, all the while ignoring the muffled yells and the sounds of futile flailing around by Bacon and Angelina Marie. Then it hit him. The crown molding, that wooden trim at the top of the kitchen walls that he'd admired last time, had been removed and replaced with simple, smooth wood. Lelou put down his teacup. He stood up on a chair and rubbed his hand where the crown molding used to be. So there it was, telling a story. My little story. Now, where did you go, Richie, Ellie, and T rapidly approached Nicholas's house on their sail cart. "T, I can't believe you haven't been able to drive your sail cart yet," said Richie. "Yeah, what's the deal with that? It's been a while. Is he building you a new one?" asked Ellie. T got off the back of Sally's sail cart and shrugged. "I don't know. I would love to have it, but I know my grandfather has a good reason. I just don't know what it is yet. By the way, that was a great wind we had behind us. It was certainly faster than walking with that big basket." She accepted the picnic basket back from Richie. "When you're going against the wind, you can use the sail just like on a ship and tack side to side into the wind. It's really cool," said Richie. "Huh," said Ellie, impressed. "I hadn't thought of that. How do you know about sailing?" Richie smiled. "My dad took me sailing on a couple of times this summer. Since this had a sail, I figured it would work the same, and it did." "Hey, look, there's my sail cart," said T, pointing. It was sitting just outside the open doors of the large shed. After the Koshin brothers had moved to their own house, Nicholas had reclaimed the shed, once again filling it with a million things, from rakes to old cabinets to things unknown. "It doesn't look any different," said Richie. "I would have thought he'd at least paint it yellow or something." T shrugged. "I'll have to ask him. I can't imagine he's done nothing to it. Anyway, thanks for the ride, guys." Ellie raised her sail and her cart immediately started to move. "Richie, I'll race you home." T waved goodbye to her friends, then walked up the path. She climbed the steps to the front door. A bad feeling washed over her, and she looked around. Deciding she was being silly, she knocked on the door. A minute passed. "Odd," she said to herself. She went down the steps and reached around underneath them. No big rock, so that means he's not home. She looked at the open shed door, confused. A decade before, Nicholas had developed a simple system to let his family know whether he was home or not. If he was home, he'd leave a large rock under the first step. Only once had he ever forgotten. He knew the door to the shed was always closed when he wasn't home, without exception. She went to the front door and knocked again. After another minute passed. She checked for the rock again, this time on her hands and knees. The bad feeling got stronger. She stood up, cleaned herself off, and yelled, "Grandpapa, are you in there?" She waited, fidgeting nervously. Just as she was turning to leave, a reply came. "Come in," yelled this distant, muffled voice. With her hand on the doorknob, T hesitated. It didn't sound right. "Grandpapa, is that you?" "Come in, my dear," yelled the faint voice again. The hand on the back of her neck stood up. The hair on the back of her neck stood up. She backed down the steps and then along the path of a couple yards. She donned her hood, pulled out her shock sticks, and gave one of the handles a few quick turns. "Are you coming in?" called the muffled voice, closer now. She glanced around, waiting nervously, and started winding up her second shock stick. The door creaked open. "I said come in," growled the voice. "I win," yelled Ellie, pulling her brake and popping out of her sail cart. "I beat you! I beat you!" she taunted Richie while jumping up and down in the middle of the road. It had been quite an exciting race home. "Fine, I was beaten," said Richie, noticing something behind Ellie. He pointed and said, "Hey." Ellie glared at him and interrupted. "Don't rob me of my victory!" "But," said Richie, still pointing, now waving his finger. "No but," said Ellie. "But us," said Captain Archambault, as he, Nicholas, and a contingent of 10 armed guardsmen ran up to them. The kids sprang to attention and saluted the captain. "Don't do that," he replied, waving them to stop. "Save that for the magistrate or someone whose ego needs it." He hated that the kids were taught to do this. He understood the tradition, and had done it himself as a child, but it bothered him now that he was the one being saluted all the time. "You know, my friend," said Nicholas, trying to catch his breath, "you are in remarkably good shape for—" Gabriel started to laugh. "For a fat man? Ha! I'm running on anger. I'm sure I'll drop dead when this is over." Towering over Richie and Ellie, the captain said, "We need to find your friend T. Have you seen her?" His voice was clear and commanding. "We just left her At his house, said Richie, looking at Nikolas confused. If you're here, that... Lulu, said Richie and Ellie in unison. Do your parents have any horses? said the captain asked Ellie. Lulu and his men made our horses sick. We ran here. We believe that T and others are in danger. Ellie replied, my parents have 2 horses, but Richie and I can get to Monsieur Klaus as fast on our sail carts. It doesn't take long, especially with the wind today. What's it? Started Gabriel. He then turned to Nikolas. One of your inventions? Nikolas nodded. He was looking somewhat recovered. Richie ran off. I'll be back in a second, he said to Ellie. He came back a moment later with their yellow cloaks, which they had left by her front door. Captain Alkenbold turned to 2 of his men. Inform this young lady's parents we'll need to borrow their horses, and then get to Klaus's house as fast as possible. He turned to Ellie and Richie. You kids go now. Go as fast as you can. Your friend's life is in danger. If you see any of Lulu's men, don't do anything. Just wait for us. But if you see her, quietly get her to come. The rest of you, let's go. Nikolas, what's the fastest way by foot?